Okay, so this video is actually a follow-up to a previous video where I showed how to set up a project for benchmarking in .NET. It turns out in that video I made a mistake. It's a small one, a very small mistake, but we're going to correct that today. We're going to see how to validate benchmarks in .NET. You see, in the previous video I was showing two different ways. I was benchmarking two different ways to concatenate strings. And I thought both method were returning the same string. Turns out it wasn't. There was a subtle difference between the two. So subtle that it really didn't affect the meaningfulness of the benchmarks. But still, you can see how a mistake in your benchmark code could lead to substantially falsified results. And then you end up making decisions based on the data that you're getting from those benchmarks that could be totally wrong. So we're going to see how to validate the results or what your benchmark methods are returning so that you can make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. Let's dive right in. All right, I'm going to share my screen and let's see if I can make that full screen. Here we go. So this is actually, we're starting where we left off in the previous video. And you can quickly see, if you're familiar with join, you can quickly see the problem here. Join will concatenate strings together using a delimiter, but it will skip that delimiter at the very end. It won't add it at the end of your string, which is usually what you want. But here, we can see that we're going all the way to the end and appending a comma and a space. So it turns out that both methods are not returning exactly the same thing. They're not doing exactly the same work. And we could have caught that if we had some sort of testing in place to make sure that both of those methods were returning the same value. Now, how would we do that? When I first noticed that mistake, thanks to a coworker, I thought maybe I would have to write some tests. Turns out that the package we're using, benchmark.net, has an attribute in it that does exactly what we want. So all we really have to do is add, I think it's return value validator. We can actually pass in a fail on error true. And that will take care of making sure that all of the benchmark methods in that class are returning the same thing for the same parameters. Let's try running our benchmarks now to see what happens. Here we go. It didn't run our benchmarks. Instead, it's saying inconsistent benchmark return values in benchmarks. And now we see the two methods and what's being returned. Now, when you're looking at this visually, you might think that you're getting the same return. So why is it complaining? Well, it turns out that this comma here is not part of the result. It's a comma that's being added by benchmark.net to separate each of the method returns. So just to confirm that, let's change that to a period and run the benchmarks again. All right, and now we can see period, 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 comma, or no period. The comma here is just to separate between the two cases. Whereas here, this is the actual comma that's being added to our output. Another way to confirm that would be to change the order. I guess maybe I haven't tried that before. Let's give it a shot. The order they come in the class. see. And it fails. And we can see we've got our comma and this and space, and this is a comma that's being added by the package. Whereas here we've got nothing. Okay. I'll bring that back in the order I had it before. I like it better that way. All right, so great. We've just added a way to notice if we've made a mistake and we're not testing the same thing. Now let's just, for the sake of completeness, let's fix our mistake. So we're not going to go all the way to the end. Instead, in that loop, at the very end, we will simply, there we go, append. And that's it. That should do it. And by the way, that code was suggested to me by Copilot, so I'm not entirely to blame. I am. I'm ultimately responsible, but yeah. Let's see. There we go. And now we can see, you know, it ran those tests. Everything was fine. So now it just continues with running the benchmarks, and we don't really need to see that. So that very simple, really. And I think it probably best practice when you've got something that's worth benchmarking in your project. It's probably worth adding this attribute to make sure that you're not making any mistake and really benchmarking the same thing, comparing apples to apples. If you like this video, please you know, like or subscribe for other content similar to this one. Thank you.